This is Honokohau Kaloko National Historic Park in Kailua-Kona. There's a little visitor center over there. It's a free park, and they give you pamphlets. There's a park ranger there who will explain things. But this was an ancient Hawaiian village, and there's really neat fish ponds and petroglyphs, and there's a trail that goes all around it. It was built, this big lava field here, and it was built along the shoreline for the most part. So we'll take a look around. So there's a trail that goes, kind of loops around, makes a big loop around the park. And this portion is the first section of the trail. It's just going across these lava fields. It's an old Hawaiian trail. And they had these all the way along the shoreline. They built these so they could trade with other villages and get around, basically. And yeah, so this is the first section. It's a rocky, walk. So if you do decide to come out and do this, which you should, this first section is, you want to wear good footwear. But it's really beautiful. This trail is called the Mamalahoa Trail, King's Trail, and it was the straightest path to get from village to village up along the coast here in Kona. This is a ancient Hawaiian fish pond. This is called the Kaloko fish pond, and so they put a little fence here, but this, you can see this wall. They built this wall going all the way, giant wall to keep the ocean out. You can see that they built these up and down the coast where they'd find an area with some natural springs, because it rains a lot up the mountain, and then there's lava tubes and underground springs that come down to the coast and they bubble up, and so this is probably partially like a tidal pond. You can see they have an opening there, right there, an opening in the wall, so the fish can come, and then they would put the fish would come in and swim in here, and then they block it off so they can't get back out. And then they would have this pond would this is a really big one. A lot of them are much smaller than this, but this pond would feed the whole village, and it attracts a lot of birds only found in Hawaii, and other birds that migrate down from Alaska, and there's all kinds of birds. It's a really good place to go bird watching. Wouldn't you know it, I'm not seeing any right now, but there's another fish pond down the coast. These are little, there's tide pools, and you can see out here the boats. Got a dive boat right there anchored. People are sailing. It's a beautiful, nice breeze. Cools you off a little bit. It's a warm day, but the breeze feels really nice out here. Got a paddleboarder, sailboats. We just left the little coastal beach park and the big fish pond, and now we're on the Alakahakai Coastal Trail, and gonna go along the shoreline. You see all the fishing boats out there. They're just pulling their lines One thing about the Kona coastline here is that the water drops off pretty quickly. So where those boats are is about 600 feet deep, and that's where they catch the big fish, the marlin, you know, the ahi, the big. So they catch a lot of the wahoo, you know. They call it ono here, ono. So that's where they catch. They catch all those big fish. They just cruise back and forth right at about 600 feet depth, and the harbor is actually right here. So it's one of the few places in the world that you can fish that I know of. You can leave the harbor, and within quarter of a mile, you can catch a 1,000-pound marlin. You know, so or a big ahi right along here. That's why you see all the boats going back and forth here, and they continue on down the coast. There's also buoys offshore that attracts large fish, and they go out there about 5 miles out to go to the buoy, and you can fish there. And yeah, the fishing's really good. This bird here is the Hawaiians call kolea, and it's a Pacific golden plover. And they come here every winter. They have an interesting story. They fly, this little bird flies all the way from Alaska to Hawaii every winter without stopping. So that's a long flight. That's at least a couple thousand miles. And you see them arriving in the wintertime. I think they go back around, you know, early summer. They go back and they breed in Alaska. But a few stay here all year round, but for the most part, they go back to Alaska every year and they fly back. The first snowbirds, right there, kolea. The coastal trail goes along these little lava, in between the lava, kind of brackish ponds here. There's a lot of brackish ponds where it's a mixture of fresh water and salt water all throughout here. And you would think that it'd be difficult for the Hawaiians to survive here, but they actually thrived. They had, you know, they used these ponds for fish ponds, and as we mentioned earlier, but they also had techniques to take the fresh water out and drink it. When you snorkel, sometimes you'll see a little line where the fresh water is less dense than the salt water, so the fresh water will float on the top. And so they had techniques for taking that water, the fresh water, out of these little ponds that we have around here, and drinking it, and also using it to water plants. See a little fish in there. But this is part of the Kaloko Trail. You can see how the rocks are stacked really smooth, really neatly, so you can walk very easily across it. This is another big fish pond, and I see some big birds out here. Couple big. So the Hawaiians lived on divisions of land called ahupua'as, where they'd be a strip of land, narrow strip of land from the ocean to the top of the mountain, and that way they could fish. And at the coast is about 20 inches of rain per year, and as you go to, you can see where it's raining right there. That's about 1,000 feet elevation up on the mountainside, and if the mountain goes up 8,000 feet, it's an 8,000 foot mountain, Mount Huala. You can see the flank of it over here. Goes all the way up behind those clouds. So it rains about 50 inches up at about 1,400 feet elevation, just above where the rain is right now. And so they would grow. They'd have trails that went up the mountain, and they would grow, fruit, vegetables, and it's really rich farmland up there for growing. And there's it's perfect climate, plenty of water, soil. So, and that's where we grow coffee today. It's considered the Kona coffee belt up there. And so that's how they lived. They had their canoes, they'd fish here, they have fish ponds at the coast. And then they would have people that were living up on the upper portion of their ahupua'a, and they have strips. This one's called Honokohau, and then maybe a half mile down the road, you're in Kaloko, and then there's the next one going all the way around the island, slicing it up like a pie. And this is another fish pond. Big fish pond. I mean, a lot of them are much smaller than these. And you can see that this is brackish water out here. You know, so the Hawaiians developed techniques to get their drinking water and water for plants from this brackish water. Here are a couple of green sea turtles sunning themselves. Right there. Here's one swimming. Wow. Okay, where is he? There he is. They like to eat the algae off the rocks. So they cruise around these tide pools. So there's two out there in the sun. And here's one right here in front of us. There's another one right there. Yeah, there's two of them. Oh, there's another one over there. There's three of them. Wow. You don't normally see that many together. Eating the algae. You have to take a breath of air here pretty soon. He's eating that algae. Oh yeah, this one's moving. And this is the fish trap. They would, at high tide, the fish would swim in to this little bay area, lagoon area, and then I guess there was a way they would trap them, you know, blocking off the exit. It's low tide right now. As you can see, a lot of people here. It's a Sunday. People are on the beach. And this is a canoe house right here. This is where they would store their canoes. Right in here and work on them. Right in there. They'd go up the mountain about 4,000 feet to where the hardwoods, the koa trees would grow. It's a tropical hardwood. And they would make canoes cut those trees down, bring them down to the shoreline, and they'd carve canoes, outrigger canoes. Looks like they would launch them. Looks like it's probably a good place to launch them if the canoe house is here. They'd probably launch it there. I see there's another opening out there. So this is a very old game board. A game that the Hawaiians used to play. It was called konane. Konane. It's kind of like checkers. You know, they have little holes and they would use shells, you know, to play. I'm not sure what the rules were exactly, but it's in some ways similar to checkers. And they'd sit here, and some of these boards are 1,000 years old. And they'd have their village, this is where their village